Hey guys, what's up? So this video is brought to you by Linode Hosting. If you guys are looking for reliable, fast web hosting, I've been using Linode for over 8 years. It's what I use for CodeHawk, for every website I've had for the last 8 years. So I've done business with them for a long time, but now they're sponsoring the channel, which is really cool because I can actually vouch for the product. Linode is growing fast. They have a new data center that they just opened in Toronto, and they're opening new data centers all the time. So make sure you guys check them out. There's a $20 discount in the link below. Hey guys, what's up? So in this video, we're going to be looking at how to get started with Selenium and Python. These two tools are used together in order to do things like screen scraping, automation, and testing. It's mostly used for actual user interface testing. And the reason why it's so beneficial and helpful is because instead of having to worry about implementing JavaScript or firing JavaScript or hitting specific endpoints or anything like that, you just simply have to fire up a browser, go to an endpoint, and the browser does all the work. But then the data that you need to get or interact with is still there, and you can use Selenium to do it. The downside with Selenium is that you're not going to build really a full-scale search engine with something just like Selenium. It's really not enough to do the job, and it's really too slow. But there are plenty of websites out there that you can get like enough data probably. And for the most part, just being able to use it for simple automation tasks as well, like checking emails and things like that. You could build tiny little scripts to do all kinds of stuff to make your life easier. So first things first, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code and open up a folder to a Selenium example folder that I have. And we're just going to store all the code for the example inside of here. And what we need to do is go ahead and open up a terminal. And then there's also a prerequisite here. Since we're using Python, you have to make sure you do have Python installed. If you've never done that before, go to python.org. and download it and install it so you have it available. So let's go to Visual Studio Code and we're going to say new terminal. Click on that. Inside the new terminal, we're just going to say pip install Selenium. Now pip is the package manager that comes with Python by default, and that will just reach across the web and grab what you need for Selenium and download it so it's available to you. All right, so the next thing I want to look at is we want to go to a downloads page for Chromium downloads. You want to download the latest Chrome driver, and the reason why is because we want to do all of our screen scraping and such with Chrome. Chrome has the best tools, it works the best, it's also the fastest, and it's the most widely used browser, so you want to make sure you are able to test on that. So a Chrome driver is a separate project though, so you do have to download this along with Selenium in order for all this to work. So this is just a zip folder, so we're going to extract this to a location that we can access it. I'm going to put it in the same place that I have my folder for my project code, which is in my tutorials, Python, Selenium example folder. I'm just going to put the exe there. So now if we go back to Visual Studio Code, you're going to see the Chrome driver.exe. And we're going to go ahead and create our new, our first example, and we're just going to call this example.py for Python. It's a Python file. All right, so in this example, we're going to say from Selenium, import Selenium. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and define our driver variable. So this is our web driver, which is commonly referred to Selenium web driver, what we downloaded. We're going to tell it to use Chrome, and this is where we have to say give it a path to the Chrome driver.exe. And you don't even have to actually spell it all out like exe like that. You just have to actually say where is Chrome driver. In fact, you can even just give it a root directory since it is in the root directory of the project. So now we can just go ahead and now use it. We can say driver.get, and this is where you can pass in an HTML page. So we're just going to HTTPS go to google.com. All right, and that's really it. So instead of, we're not going to quit the driver or anything because I want this thing to stay open. So let's go ahead and how do we fire this this example? You could just do it right from the command line by typing Python and then the name of the file, except you have to give it the actual extension .py. Here you're gonna say cannot import name Selenium because we do have a typo. Wait, no we don't. My bad. I've been doing too much JavaScript lately. You need to say from Selenium import the web driver. That's a lot of JavaScript lately with the imports that I've been doing. But so this should be good. All right, let's go ahead and try to fire this up. Right now, you're going to have to allow access probably for the first time when Selenium WebDriver runs, like your operating system might flag it like you just saw with mine. Let's go ahead and run this again, though, so it's not flagged. All right, so this is why it's always good to just do these examples all the time, because things change all the time. The latest version of Python here, what we're getting on Windows is we're getting that a binary file cannot be executed via Python in this way. So normally you could be able to do this, and now you have to now pass in this new executable path, and then you have to put the binary switch on it, and that's what I'm doing here. So it's this binary raw switch. And we want to tell it actually explicitly Chrome driver.exe. Now we have to do that. Okay, so another thing too is we don't need the double quotes on the outside. All right, so now we fixed all that. Let's go ahead and try to run the example again. And if everything goes well, you should have Chrome fire up now and go to google.com. And there you go. All right, so if you notice, the window was not maximized when we tried to open it. So if we want to actually maximize it, there's a function that we can call on our driver called maximize window. And by doing so, we should now be able to run the program, and it should open up Chrome full screen. It'll take a second, and it'll open full screen. There it goes. All right, so let's take a look at a website right here, which is Stack Overflow. And you can see that I'm logged into the website on Chrome. So if I actually go and navigate to Chrome, I should be logged in, right? Well, let's go ahead and try to see what happens if we do that through Selenium. So let's go ahead and modify this to go to stackoverflow.com. All right. And if everything goes well, we should be able to see ourselves logged into Stack Overflow, hopefully. But no, unfortunately not. If we go to Stack Overflow, you can see that this login, sign up. I'm not logged in, so you can see Chrome has this annoying message that's being controlled by automated test software. But the fact of the matter is that you're spinning up a new Chrome profile, like a temporary Chrome profile. You're not actually loading the one that you normally use for your day-to-day activities. And clearly, if you're going to be doing a lot of automation for your day-to-day activities with emails and stuff like that, then you want to be able to load your profile and not have to sign into a website 100 times a day. All right, so if we want to take a look at how to get rid of this annoying test software message at the top, we can easily do that. We're going to use something called a Chrome options project, which is separate from Selenium. So we need to go ahead and import it. We're going to say from selenium.webdriver.chrome.options import options. And this has to be capitalized. All right, so now we can go ahead and use that. So we're going to go ahead and define our Chrome options variable to say, let's go ahead and new up an options object. And then we're going to go ahead and add to that. And we're going to say add argument, which is a built-in method to add an argument to this. And we're going to say disable extension. We're going to say there's a disable info bar is actually what it is. That's what I want. All right, so disable info bars. All right, so that should be good. So now we shouldn't have that annoying message when we go to run our program. Okay, so when you do new up your actual Chrome driver, where we put the executable path to the exe, we also have to pass in another option saying Chrome options equals our local Chrome options variable that we created. All right, so now it should be using that, and if everything goes correctly, we should have that annoying message. And you guys probably saw, geez, I really need to slow down with my typing, but you can see that there's a typo there. So if I actually spelled it right, I probably would have better results. These things are just strings, and obviously you have to be 100% exact. But now we get the result that we're looking for. The automated annoying message is not there anymore. All right, so another option I want to add to our Chrome options is we can add an argument to say start maximized. All right, so by saying that, we don't actually have to call this after the fact. And now instead of this actually starting small and then making it bigger, this should actually start big, as you can see. All right, guys, so the next thing we want to do, let's go back to the example of how do we load our default profile so that we don't have to log into a website in order to interact with things. And to do that, you need to go, and we're going to go into an address bar in Chrome and type Chrome version. And what you want to do is keep track of where your default Chrome profile is here. So here you can see this is my default profile, so that's what I want to grab. I want to make note of that. And in order to load that, we're going to go to our code, and we have the option of adding that to our Chrome options. So we're going to say Chrome options dot add argument again, and then here this is where we can say user data directory equals, and then I'm going to paste in this path here, and yeah, it looks like that should be good. All right, so hopefully everything works well for you. Let's go ahead and try this out. And then also with the path, let's go ahead and we want to get rid of this this data part. We actually it just needs to say user data. That should be fine. Also, if you get the error message down here that the Unicode escape codec can't decode bytes in position blah blah blah, we either need to escape the backslashes, or you can just put a raw, which is easier. So put a raw string on that, and that should work. All right. Looks like there's a deprecated argument, because again, things just go out of friggin'. Okay, I just saw something was deprecated. User data, don't use user data directory driver blah blah blah. All right, guys. So the deprecation warning is just simply saying that they don't like to call it Chrome options anymore. You can call it options. That's fine. It fails gracefully, but the problem here now is that because things change so often, now Chrome, Selenium, and all this crap does not allow you to use your default profile by default, which it used to just literally months and versions ago. But it does not do that anymore because it has your browser history and all this other crap. So how do you get around that? The only way to do that really is going to be to actually clone your default profile, so that way you can have you can load the clone version and confuse the system basically. Actually, what we're going to do instead, we're going to go to where the default location is, and we're just going to copy this folder and we're going to paste it. So it's going to create a duplicate of that, so it should be like default, and then it'll put parentheses version 1 around it. And then what we're going to do is just rename that, and then that is going to be the actual profile that we're going to try to load from Chrome. Alright, so it might take a second to copy over, but once I did that, I renamed the default one to Ninja, as you can see here. So that's going to be the profile that we load. So if we go back to the code, you can see that we're now, this is where it's loading. We had it loading the default before, but let's go ahead and load Ninja. And we're going to go to Stack Overflow now. So the first time you go to it, you are going to have to log in. And then once you're logged in, if you go ahead and close out your session, and go back to the code and run it again, and you can see that the default profile is being loaded and that we don't have to log in again. So once you log into individual sites one time with this cloned profile, then again, you don't have to do it over and over again, so that saves a lot of time. Alright guys, so the logging in profile example is done. So we're now going to shift gears and we're going to go to codehawk.com, which is my website, so that way we're not picking on other people's websites. And this website here is what we're going to use for just basic manipulation and stuff like that. So how do we click on certain links? Here's a tutorial. If we right click using Chrome, it'll pull up the inspector, and on this inspector, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bigger for you guys. So we're going to split this right in half here so you guys can see the actual HTML. So if we right click, sometimes after the inspector's open, you have to right click again and say inspect, and then it should take you to the actual link. And here you can see that if I right click, I can actually say copy and get the X path. And then once I have the X path, I can go ahead and interact with that. So let's go to our code, and we're going to change the website that we're going to codehawk.com. So once we have an element in mind, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and identify that element. We can actually even create a variable. So I could even say like my variable equals driver dot, and then here this is where we're going to have a method that says find. And then there's a bunch of different find. You can find by an ID, by a class name, which is going to return a list because classes can have multiples. Well, actually, I'm sorry. By class name, it's going to find the first occurrence of that, or maybe the last. I'm not sure. It's either going to find the first occurrence of that class name or the last, but typically when you want to find all the class names, you're going to say find elements. So there's going to be anytime you're selecting by multiples, and even now it says like find elements by ID. Well, proper HTML only has one ID, but if for whatever reason you're dealing with broken HTML and you want to have all the elements that have that matching ID, then that's why they have those here. So if you're going to get a list of values to come back, then you're going to say find elements. And if you just want one value, then you're going to say find element. But we're going to use the XPath since that's what we copied directly from Chrome. And I can just paste that right in there. And then this element here, so now that we have the variable, we can say my variable, and then there's all these different options that you have on here. So I could get an actual property of it. I could get an attribute on that HTML element. You can get the text value of it. There's all kinds of different things you can do with it. But what I can also do is I can click it, and I can call that as a function. So I can say go ahead and click that thing, and let's see what happens. So let's press Control S to save our program. Press the up arrow key on our terminal to go ahead and launch the python.exe. If you have Python set up to actually work with Visual Studio or whatever, then that's great. But in my case, I don't want to go into that on this tutorial. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that every time Chrome is open here, because we're loading our default profile, if you have the profile open, you're going to get an error message. Let me show you. Right now, the profile is not open, so this works, and it goes to CodeHawk, and it goes and it clicks on the tutorials, and it takes you to the courses and everything that I have. So that worked just exactly the way that we wanted it to. But see, if this is open, and I just want to show you, and you go to try to run the program again, then you're going to get that it's going to get stuck right here on Chrome. But you go back, you're going to get this error message that says that it's already in use. So if you get that, it means you need to kill your session. There's a way to actually kill your driver session by default by saying driver.quit. The problem with doing that is you're going to see when I'm actually explaining the material, it's going to go there, it's going to do what it does, and it's going to quit, and it's going to look like it didn't do anything. So it's not good for me to explain it to you guys in that sense, but typically when you're doing your own programs, you do want to call driver.quit, so that way it'll free up that resource for the next time the script runs and the browser's not in use. All right, so let's look at dealing with a list of values. If we wanted to deal with a list of values, this is where I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to involve my debugger, because Python, if you have the Python extension installed for Visual Studio Code, then you're going to be able to debug your Python code and everything. And it's definitely worthwhile of doing so. Make sure you have the root directory selected here. We're going to go to our debug icon, go to add configuration, press this play button, and then we're going to select that we want to deal with a Python file, and here this is going to be the file. It just says give me the file, so we're going to go here, and now I can go to the debug. In fact, I can just have this selected, press F5. This will run the program, and then by doing so we now get to have breakpoints. So this is going to be able to help me explain it to you guys a lot easier. So let's go ahead and stop this real quick. Let's go ahead and we want to use the list. So if I say find elements, if I hover over and say find elements, you can see that it says returns a list of web elements. So that's if a list of elements was found, it's going to return that in a list format. The IntelliSense is a great thing, right? And if I highlight over just element, you can see that it returns a single web element. So you get all kinds of information from what the code is doing just from the documentation in the IntelliSense if you have the tools all set up. I have tutorials actually on how to do all that stuff, and by the way, in getting started with Python, so if you guys are just getting started in that, in fact I have all kinds of stuff. This Python for beginners is probably where to start on that, but I would teach you how to debug and all that stuff, but I just kind of showed you real quickly how to do that. Alright, so let's go ahead and I'm going to get rid of this driver.quit so we can see what's going on. And I want to say, since I've changed this to my variables, I'm expecting a list of values back by saying changing this to elements, and we're going to change this to say, you know what, I want to get all the anchors on the page. Give me every HTML anchor that is on that page and give it to me in this my variables variable. And we can no longer click it because it's a list of elements now. So for right now, let's just go ahead and we're going to say we'll just print my variables, right? We'll just print that, and we can stop the execution right there. So press F5 to debug. This is going to find all the anchors again once it goes there. This is where we run into that problem where it freezes because we didn't free it up. Let's go ahead and do that again. All right, so now we have variables, and if we hover over it, you can see on my page, my HTML page here, that we have all of these different anchors, and I can get all the information about them, including like things like their ID. That's internal actually, but if I want to get information about the actual element, then if you hover over them, each individual one, they will have like a text field on here, so you can see that this anchor is there's no text for that anchor, and that's common when you have text that like wraps like you know, elements and stuff like that. So a lot of these don't actually have any sort of text in here. Like here's one that does though. Here's the text for about us. So this is the about us page, but if you're going to build a basic spider scraper, you can go to a web page, grab all the anchors, right, and then you evaluate what is this anchor, where is it going to, and stuff like that. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at how we're going to actually search something. We're going to look at this little search box, and we need to click on it, because when we click on it, let's inspect it real quick. When we click on this, though, it's going to pop up this dialog. So let's go ahead and find this element here. So I can just say copy the XPath, go back to my software, and let's go ahead and we're going to just say driver find element by XPath, and then we'll paste in our XPath. And then I'm also going to say to click it. And I can do that actually all in one statement. And I don't even have to define a variable, so I'll get rid of the variable and just have this all in one statement here. There's no need to have that in a variable. All right, so let's go ahead and run it. And you can see that it immediately exited the Chrome browser there. I don't know why. Interesting. All right, so we need to just go ahead and do a oh, it's because we didn't save the file. Okay, so let me I'm just going to do a console statement here just to debug, just so I can stop this thing in execution. All right, so now if we go to our page, we can see here that we can actually search now. So let's go ahead and look at the text element that we now need to find. You can see that there's a search field with a name, a Q, which is common for a query. So we can actually say, it'd be nice if it actually had an ID on it, but it does not. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to use an XPath to find this value. I just want to show you that you can use an XPath to find this value based on the attribute. So there is a shorthand way that we can actually use the console from within Visual Studio, or not Visual Studio, but Chrome here. And you can use the console to type in an XPath, so you can actually check your XPath by using this syntax here, and then put your XPath inside here. So if I want to get the title, you can see I can return the title there. And you can get the title element, but that's how you can actually practice with your XPaths. And what we want to do is, in this case, we want to find an input element, and we want its attribute. We want the first attribute, and we notice the name is the name of the attribute that we were looking for, and we want it to be Q, right? That was the name of it. So we could say find that. So this is actually finding two of them, right? So this is a problem. There's a mobile and there's also the regular desktop one. So we're going to say, you know what, I want the first one. So I could actually say, grab that one, and here this is the actual one. No, this is the search. So it's actually, is it 0 index? It is 0 index. Interesting. 0 index on the array that gets returned because it's JavaScript. But if you want the actual XPath, you could do the XPath and do an index value, but it does start counting at 1. So here, interesting, maybe not. I'm sorry. No, it does count at 1. All right, so this is then, no, all right, you're killing me. All right, so this needs to be defined. Okay, whatever. Interesting. Okay, I get it. So what I need to do is you need to actually say, when you're dealing with the XPath, you're going to say input, and then here you're going to say the same thing with the attribute name equals Q. But then if I go ahead and wrap the entire thing in parentheses, then you can then reference the index value. But again, because it's the XPath index value, it starts counting at 1. So therefore, that is what we want. This is exactly what we want right here. So we have the XPath that we're looking for. Let's switch back over to the code. And here we're going to say driver.find element. Give me some element by XPath. Paste this in. And then here, if we want to pass some actual values, we're going to say send keys. And we're just going to search for the value Python. All right, let's restart the program. And you got to kill this. And then we'll restart. The non-freeing of resources is killing me, actually. Killing me one debug at a time. All right, so here what ended up happening is we get an exception value, and this is because it could not find this. It's actually saying that's, that is invalid because it's not wrapping it. We're missing a parenthesis there. You have to wrap it properly. Okay. All right, let's do that again. It's always good to see these bugs so you guys can see how I solve them, and you guys can solve them yourselves, because you're going to run into bugs. It's obviously something that happens. But here you can see it actually sent the keys just like we wanted to Python. And then like how do we go ahead and like press the enter button? So if we want to be able to send the enter key, what we need to do is say from selenium.webdriver.common.keys import keys. And then now what I can do is after I say send keys, you can also then say keys.enter. All right. And let's kill the program. Restart it. Alright, so now we hit the breakpoint. If we go here, you can see that it did press enter, and now we actually get our Python results back. So the two tutorials that match. For Python, you get it back. You can see the URL is there, so it definitely pressed enter just fine. So now let's see if we can interact with other things on this menu. This is just a basic hover. That's not really what I want to deal with. Unfortunately, I don't really have a drop-down menu on this thing, but you can do everything with Selenium when it comes to interacting with a web page. If you have to deal with a drop-down menu, there's just different elements behave differently from within Selenium. The API is rather simple. I think I pretty much showed you guys how to get started with it. So just individually, I think some of the things you might focus on or might struggle with a little bit is just simply dealing with pages that might have some AJAX that it takes some time to load. So a lot of times if you're the easy way of just simply being raw and like uncut about like trying to get it to work is like sometimes you have to pause execution for a few seconds for elements to appear, like pop-ups and stuff like that. And if you do have to find yourself waiting for time, then what you need to do is just import the time module which comes with Python, and then here you can just like do time.sleep, and then you just pass in the amount of like seconds that you want to sleep. So if it's 10 seconds, just 10. But that's going to wait 10 seconds. So that's kind of the raw way of like waiting for elements to exist. You could do things in a while loop. There's also built-in ways within Selenium to also wait for an element to appear before trying to interact with it. But some of that stuff is buggy, so you'll find you have to write your own code for a lot of this stuff. But basically, I've showed you the gist of everything, how to log into websites and not have to redo it over and over again. How to, load, like obviously the load profile to do that, send keys, click on stuff, which would really work for any sort of input, radio buttons, check boxes, whatever. Even enter buttons, like, so if you didn't want to use the keys to actually press enter, you could just simply find like an enter and press that, or whatever submit, is on the page. And that's essentially it. You can store elements and variables, and then you can get their text, and you can use Python and then take the text and you can extract that and then save it to local files or whatever it is that you're looking for. In order to find specific elements, you should use XPaths, but Selenium also gives you the ability to find by ID. So if there is one ID on the page, you can find by ID, and you don't have to deal with XPath at all. You're just simply going to put, my ID, whatever that is. So sometimes that's easier, but you'll find a lot of web pages don't have IDs on the elements you want to click, so you're kind of screwed in that sense, right? So I showed you the power of the XPath. I mean, you can find elements by literal attributes, and then you can actually find index values via the XPath itself. You can find things like I'll write XPaths that are literally finding an element and then going up like 3, to its grandparent, and then like going down into some like siblings to then go into its children. Like sometimes my XPaths get like crazy complex because of like the DOM can be really complex sometimes. All right, guys. So if you guys are interested in looking at any sort of other tutorials or anything I have available, I have really cheap prices on this stuff because I own the website. It doesn't cost me hardly anything. I don't make a whole lot on it, but I do get people that buy stuff from me. So a lot of this stuff is like, literal like hour, 2 hours, and I have it all stated how long each video is. But you get the MP4, it's just a straight video, and then there's like an actual reference that you can actually look through to see individual parts and stuff like that. So anyway, if you guys are interested in checking that out, there's also you can get like a demo as well. But anyway, you don't have to buy it. There's plenty of resources out there to learn Python. You don't have to learn it from me, but if this is helpful, then check it out. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and have a good day. Bye.